What's up, guys? Nick here from the Fatherhood podcast. I am on a drive up to a beautiful lake with my father-in-law, Mr. Bruce, and we've got about an hour drive here ahead of us, so we're going to take the opportunity to do a little interview, talk about his life as a parent, as a father, and tune in. And I hope you enjoy it. A quick warning to the listeners there. This recording was done while driving in a car. Probably a bad choice on my part, and I'll try to refrain from doing that in the future. Probably should invest in some better mics. But if you can get over the background noise and some of the audio mishaps, I think you'll really enjoy this one with my father-in-law, Bruce. Enjoy. All right, Bruce, we're recording live. This is so cool.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I have here Bruce, father of two girls, and married for how long?
30 years
30
or
years,
more,
give or take.
Maybe 35. I think. 35. My wife will not hear this recording, right?
That's right. Probably, I doubt she will. It's raining. We're driving up north in Michigan, heading to your cabin, and it's so cool. We got about an hour drive ahead of us. So we popped it on. Let's record. Let's talk a little bit.
All right.
Tell me, did you always want to be a father?
Well, that's interesting. I was thinking about that the other day, and I thought, what made me get married? I don't know if it was like this deep down desire that I got to be a dad, but definitely that happened.
Right.
I do remember though that as I chose my partner for my life, I do recall thinking that I would want this woman to be the mother of my children.
Okay. Like that was part of your criteria.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of something that, boy, if I was going to have kids, I want her to be the mom. So definitely that's was always in the works, I think, even if it was maybe subconscious.
Right.
But and then you plan for it. I mean, then you are going to make a final decision. Hey, let's have kids, because there's definitely time where you're saying, hey, let's not have kids because we're not ready yet.
Sure.
And but I can't say that I knew when I was 20 years old that I wanted to be a dad, or even I didn't get married till I was 30. So even so that that was not on my radar until after I got married. But I guess.
But the thought must have crossed your mind at some point. Or
yeah. Oh, yeah, right.
I feel like maybe you had an experience where you went, oh, I want to do that differently when I'm a dad, or I want to do it like that, or you know what I mean?
I don't think I had that experience. I'm trying to think, and I was thinking about this I've talked to my wife about it maybe a week or so ago. At what point did I decide that I wanted to do that? And I don't know if there's anything in my, history that, made me feel that I wanted to do it, or even knew that I knew what to do once I did it.
Right.
It was kind of. So no, I think it just kind of happened. Maybe if I never met my wife, you wouldn't be talking to me right now.
Right.
A different person. And actually, I remember the woman I was dating before my current wife, and I hope she doesn't hear this, because I definitely thought to myself, I wouldn't want her to be the mother of my child. So this woman I was dating,
sure,
before and that was kind of what made me partly break up with her. So maybe it was them. I guess I knew that I wanted to have kids, and I knew I didn't want to have with that woman.
Because you probably were thinking, hey, I like this girl. Could I settle down with her?
Right.
And then that question crossed your mind, and then you went, oh, I couldn't picture her being the mother of my children.
Right.
I'm going to have to break this off.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess that was the point.
But was there a point that, did your wife say, hey, what do you think about having kids? Was that conversation started by her, or was it started by you, or it just happened?
Yeah, I think it was a mutual understanding it was going to happen. I think we both wanted to have kids. So, but I don't remember specific conversation though. But it was definitely wasn't by accident. But
sure.
It was definitely planned. So, we must have had some kind of conversation, but can't remember specifics of that.
What about you had two. Had you guys decided two? Or?
Yeah, it was. I think both of us grew up, let's say 60s and 70s, and population growth was an issue, and I can't remember the gentleman's name who wrote the book about overpopulation, but maybe it was called Zero Population Growth was the name of the book, but the concept was you reproduce just one child each to replace yourself, so that we decided on two.
To maintain population growth.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Just so we got replacement parts.
You got replacements.
Right.
Was that the main? I mean, that seems like a little bit of a silly reason to decide for sure too. I mean, not a bad reason.
I don't think it was kind of like I don't know the prevailing thought at the time, but it was definitely the idea that there might be too many people on the earth, so we don't need to put too many ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
But it would have been fine to just have one and be like, well, it all averages out,
Yeah. Right. Right. Just with having one, I don't think we wanted that. We wanted to have two. Now, we maybe played around with the idea of three, but this is a true story. We had a mutual friend of ours, a woman who was a very energetic, intelligent, smart, powerful woman who was a doctor, had been the president of her medical school class, very accomplished, and we went to go visit her after the birth of her third child. And we went to visit her, and she looked completely wiped out, like completely exhausted. Not from the childbirthing, but just this was like several weeks afterwards, caring for 3 children.
Wow. And
we left her home, and I looked over to my wife and said, "If Christy can't handle 3 kids, we can't handle 3 kids."
Oh, wow.
So I was like, we said, 2's enough.
2's enough. Yeah. And I imagine maybe there was also a pull that both of you had an experience growing up in a household with other siblings, that you enjoyed that experience of having siblings, so you wanted that experience to exist for your own children too.
I think maybe having a sibling is kind of a special thing for sure.
Right.
But in saying that, I'm envious in some ways with the people who've only had one. Not so much for the parents, so it is easier on the parents.
Right.
But many single children that I've met seem to be really kind of like bright and I don't know, maybe that individualized attention they got from both parents made them a little bit more grown up and sophisticated, and it just, so I kind of envy that child in a way, because they seem to just be a step ahead of everybody else.
The outcome.
I don't know if that's true. That's just my own observation with a few family members who've had just one child. So I envy the child, and it's easier on the parents just having one, and it's also a lot cheaper.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I definitely grew up in LA, and there wasn't that many. Most of my friends and most people were only children. There were some that had siblings, but most of us were only children. And I think you saw a spectrum. Like, you saw definitely some that matured a lot quicker, because if you're in a household with 2 adults and 1 kid, the kid molds into being more adult-like, versus you got other kids around, and the kids kind of feed off that childlike energy and they act more like kids. But I've also seen it where sometimes those only children, and it just comes down to the parenting, where that kid just becomes overly spoiled when it's an only child. Spoiled.
Yeah.
I've seen it go that way too.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if having another sibling would help not get spoiled, but at least there's less money to go around.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but I see what you're saying, for sure.
But 2 kids was good. I think it worked out fine for us. We were both very happy, but it does stretch resources. I mean, to have more than 2, it becomes more difficult. Childcare, paying for childcare, planning for college education, all that stuff you kind of keep in mind when you're going forward. And I'm amazed at people that have 5 or 7 kids.
Right.
I don't know how they do it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Right.
Do you, with childcare, so both you and your wife worked full time?
Yeah.
So it was obviously needed.
Right. It was, we lucked out at times with the people we've had. Other times it was miserable, but because my wife Jo was a school teacher, or as she would want me to say, she was a teacher, she pointing out that she did not teach schools.
Right.
But her hours were usually such that in the early years, our kids were great. They would like nap for like most of the day, so that oftentimes she would arrive at the babysitter's house or arrive home when the kid was waking up from a nap, and didn't lose out on a lot of
bonding time.
Yeah, bonding time and wakeful time with the children. But she definitely took the burden of childcare nonetheless. She had a job and childcare because my hours were much longer than hers, and then also for holidays and vacations, I did not have as many as she did. So
sure.
She took on most of the childcaring.
Maybe she had the summers off.
Right.
Being a teacher, so
holidays, a lot
of public holidays and stuff.
And then when they went to school, I mean, she would basically get home when they got home,
right.
As she was teaching. So,
is there a part of you that wishes that you could have had more free time to be able to be there alongside her too? But your job was really demanding.
Yeah, I liked definitely being with the kids, and I think I know I missed out on a lot, so I would say because there were times when because of my work I would not be able to go on some trips. My wife would have the summers off, and she would pack the kids up and head north for a long weekend or something, and then I'd be back home working. So I wasn't envious of that.
Or also that you're kind of lonely at that point, because even if you do have the weekend off, I mean, would you drive? I guess you would drive up for a quick Saturday, Sunday, real quick to see them, kind of thing, and come back.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But they would have some experiences, or like during the summer, not necessarily traveling anywhere, but she would maybe take the kids to the lake during the day,
right.
On Wednesday, let's go to the lake.
Right.
And I wasn't part of that, so I kind of, wish I had been.
Sure.
But
you got to make money.
Yeah, right.
That's how it works. With big factory over there, huh?
Right.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. All so green up here.
That's the Jordan Iron Works, and for you listeners, go look at your storm grates on your street, and you might see Jordan, Michigan.
In storm drains.
Yeah.
In your local city.
East Jordan, Michigan, on the storm drain.
Wow.
Yeah. It had been located on the north arm of Lake Charlevoix, and now it's on the.
And that was quite the facility.
Yeah.
It's no joke. I mean, that's like.
Yeah.
That's serious. Oh, dang. East Jordan. Wow.
It's in the middle of a wilderness area.
Yeah. They got woods all around. That's great. The parking lot looked pretty packed. It's a Saturday. So, I mean, there's guys working in there.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's probably a majority of people employed around here.
Oh, yeah.
Working over there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
If it's not deer hunting season, they're working in there.
That's right. East Jordan, we're heading towards Petoskey. How do you say it? Petoskey?
Yeah, Petoskey.
Petoskey.
I forget if that's an Indian word. I always thought it was the name of some Polish guy, but it's and I can't remember what the Indian word means, but it has a meaning.
Okay. But I mean, it's named after the Stones, so maybe that was just their word for the Stones, I guess?
No, other way around. Stone was named after Petoskey.
Oh. All right, so I want to let's talk a little bit about how was that? What was that like raising 2 girls? Versus like, I don't know, you wouldn't have known what it would have been like to raise boys, but
yeah.
Tell me about like what it was like raising 2 girls.
Yeah. Well, I think that was another element of maybe feeling a little bit out of it. I would sometimes realize, especially as they got older, that they would rather go shopping with their mom than play golf with me.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some things in that.
It bummed you out a little bit.
Yeah. But going in the very beginning of this, I remember when we had our first child, and at that time there was not a big need to do ultrasounds of the baby before it was born, so we were just totally, didn't know what we were going to get until it happened.
Oh, wow.
And so we got our first daughter, and I was real happy with her. She was grown she came out with a full head of hair, and her resemblance was similar to mine. And I remember while they were in the hospital, a friend of mine came by to visit my wife and our new child in her hospital room, and he takes a look at the baby and takes a look at me and says, "Well, we know who the dad is." But then when we were expecting our second child, still the same thing. We didn't have an ultrasound to guide us to know the sex. And people kept asking me, "Do you want a son?" And I said, "I'd be perfectly happy with another daughter." And I really truly meant that, because I really liked my first one.
Yeah.
And I was, I'd say, blessed to have the second daughter.
Yeah.
It never dawned on me to think, let's go for the third. Let's try to get that son.
Right.
I never felt that need or desire.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy being the father of two daughters. They're both great. But I always wondered, what would it be like to have had a son to play catch with? Now,
sure.
Somebody out there is going to say, "Well, why didn't you play catch with your daughters?"
Yeah.
And I would try to.
Yeah, so why didn't you?
And both of them actually were quite athletic, but the sports they gravitated to were sports that I had no experience with, so I played with them. I mean, like soccer, for example. I'd kick a soccer ball around with them, just that they were better than me. Or basketball.
You want to be able to teach them.
Yeah, right. Or basketball. They were both much better basketball players than I ever was. My younger daughter Anna was a great ball handler, and I was like, where did she learn that? Wasn't from me.
Wow.
But and then too, I think with that, they're good kids, and we did a lot of fun things together. But and I'm not a big sports guy anyway. It's not like I'm a jock of one of my kids to play, be a quarterback or anything like that.
Sure.
And as for my own experiences, because I was raised by a family that was not sport oriented and didn't push me into sports, so my daughter's interest in sports was, based on I'll say peer pressure. I mean, just what her friends were doing.
Sure.
That's what they ended up doing, not because I was guiding them there.
Right.
So.
What kind of advice would you have for? Actually, I did want to ask you a question, which is, did you notice at all that before you had your daughters and then after, did you change in temperament or emotion at all? By having some girls, did it impact you in making you a little softer, have a softer heart, or did you always have a soft heart?
Yeah, I'm always been kind of a soft-spoken person, but I also have a temper.
Sure.
And I'll share these things with the listening group out there.
Yeah.
So I remember one time with my oldest daughter, when she was, I can't remember how old she was, maybe 2 or 3. She was having some kind of fit, and it was just getting on my nerves. I just didn't know how to stop her craziness, and I just I didn't use force, but I just yelled at her.
Yeah.
I mean, louder than I ever yelled at anybody. And I can't remember what I said, but I remember just seeing her little eyes bug out of her head, freaking out. What's this guy gonna do to me? And I felt so horrible after that. I mean, I felt like such a creep.
Yeah.
That I kind of never did that again.
Yeah.
So, but was I? Did that point in time make me a softie. I was always kind of softie, but that made me try not to be an angry parent.
Yeah.
Realizing that just was not a good response that I elicited from my daughter.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that's one of the problems but one of the challenges of being a parent. Because how do you learn to be a parent? You could read books, but when something happens to you, when you're in the middle of something, can you really gather your thoughts around it, like coach this kid into better behavior or something, get them out of their irrational fit? How do you do that?
How do you do that?
No one teaches you that.
Right.
And so you kind of do learn as you go, and I just learned that by that one instance that I made a mistake.
Right. Right. But I imagine that, like, right in that instant, you lost control of yourself temporarily, but I imagine it can be a tool to, in a controlled manner, pretend to be angry in order to drive a point home that you're serious about something, but you're not. You're never gonna, really try to scare them, but you use intensity to get them in line sometimes.
Right. Or I think maybe rather than I would say but in a different sense. Not that you would pretend anger, because you probably are angry. So the thing is to control your anger,
right,
and to use that sternness in a more positive way, and maybe not even to be stern. And this is something I don't know. How do you do it? How do you do it in a gentle way?
Right.
I'm sure that, me being a guy and a dad and raised by my parents who were not specifically trained in childbearing either.
Right.
I remember getting, yelled at and threatened by spankings, though I don't recall ever my parents hitting me. But, I was raised by, those were my role models.
Sure.
So as I went forward, I tried to do things the way I was taught to do them. Again, never spanked my children, did raise my voice, but I'm sure there are many parents out there that never raised their voice at their child and raised great kids too. But
sure.
My kids are great, and I yelled at them, so I guess I did things okay.
Sure. Right.
But if I had to do things over again, that would be one thing I would like to learn how to do. But I think that's something you would have to learn. Maybe there's a book out there that teaches you how to raise kids without raising your voice.
Well, I imagine, with kids, as they're kind of, like you said, she was, 3 years old at that instant?
Yeah.
The kids are developing, and they're testing boundaries, because they don't know our social norms and customs yet. They're growing into them, and it's your job as a parent to show them those customs and what lines and boundaries you can cross and what you can't cross. And they're testing you. And in that instant, I don't think she's aware that she's testing you, but she was testing you regarding something, and then you were letting her know, even if you regret it and the way you did it, that basically this is serious and you're crossing a boundary here.
Right.
And she knew never to cross that boundary again after seeing that, because that was scary, right?
Maybe. I'm sure there was other boundaries she crossed.
Right. Well, it's a big circle. There's many boundaries to test here.
Right.
But I'm just saying, I think especially in that phase, I've heard from different stories I've read or listened to, or books I've read about it, that sometimes they're testing those boundaries. But you're right. I think as soon as you're aware that they're testing boundaries, it becomes easier to control your anger and just be aware. She's trying to test a boundary right now.
Yeah.
Well,
now you got to go back.
Pushing me.
Yeah. Now you just reminded me of something in terms of boundaries, and I'm just realizing I just lied to you to say that I never lost my temper again. So the story I just told you about was about my first daughter. Now my second daughter, who might have a high probability of listening to this, will say, wait a second, he got mad at me a lot. So when my second daughter came around, the specific instances I can recall is helping her do homework in middle school. And she would often ask for my help. And I think in particular math, and can't remember what the problem was, whatever it was, multiplication and whatever. And I was showing her how to do it. Well, all of a sudden she said, well, that's not how you do it. Well, and I said, well, no, this is how I do it. And the argument would increase in tone and in what's the word, intensity.
Sure.
Where she was like not going to let me teach her the way I learned, because that was the way she was learning, which made sense. But then that's all communication would break down, and I would just storm away and said, and kind of just say, well, just do it yourself. And but the funny thing was, she did know how to do it.
She was sitting there lecturing you.
She didn't need my help, but we would then kind of walk away from each other, pissed off. So I lied about the incidence of not using anger, but and that is the thing, I think with all relationships, is how do you control anger, and it's a challenge, whether it's towards your kid, a coworker, or your best friend or your wife. Anger is a funny thing that arises from irrational ideas.
Right. So maybe going along with that, is there you had those times where maybe you regret getting to that level, and then you since then just tried to avoid it, but are there any mechanisms or tools or things you tell yourself to help you manage your anger or control anger? Not that like you have an anger problem or anything like that, but I think we all sometimes do.
Well, I think that I do, and again, I think it's something you'll learn or get taught, or you should try to learn it, or you should try to get it taught to you. I think anger most of the time arises in us when people aren't doing what you want them to do or how you think they should be doing it.
Sure.
And that's a big source of anger. And when you're really, sometimes you just got to ask yourself, well, what makes you think they should be doing it your way?
Right.
Because everybody is doing something based on their own experiences, and their experiences have taught them a way of behaving or a way of accomplishing the goal. And one example I had read about this was, I'll tell you this. Well, I don't know which story to tell you, but I'll tell you the one about chopping lettuce. So I had heard this story about a man and a wife that were in counseling, and one of the topics that came up in the counseling member was chopping lettuce.
Sure.
And that the husband would get severely angry at the wife with the way she makes salad, because she would take a knife and chop the lettuce up, where he thought she should be tearing it apart with her hands.
Okay.
And that her chopping it was just made him furious. And it was just this ridiculous thing. What would make you so furious about using a knife to cut up lettuce leaves? So sometimes it's irrational thoughts make us really angry because someone's not doing something the way you think it should be done.
Right. Yep.
Even when it comes to making a salad.
Yeah.
We sometimes you think, well, where's my way better? My way's not necessarily better.
Right.
The salad tastes good when she makes it.
Right. Yeah.
So that with anybody, that sometimes when I'm feeling angry, I try to say, well, why am I angry? Well, they're doing it this way, or I want them to do this. But when you want someone to do something, that's kind of your problem.
Yeah.
And then to become angry at them for not doing it your way, it's kind of like, well, you got your expectations in one place.
Right.
So I try to think that, well, they can do it that way because that's the way they want to do it. Now, sometimes if it's dangerous or they're asking for help or something like that, sometimes you have to intervene. But a lot of times you just gotta let people do what they want to do.
Right. The first thing that comes to my mind is that it's because basically what you're saying is when someone is doing something differently than the way you think they should be doing it, you effectively think they're being stupid. You're like, that's stupid. What they're doing is stupid.
Right.
or the way they're doing that's stupid because it's not the way I think is the smart way.
Sure.
And we hate, or at least for me, it can be extremely frustrating to see someone being stupid or doing something stupid, especially if you think they have the potential to be smart, but they're being stupid.
Right.
And you go, gosh, what are you doing? And you get really frustrated.
Right.
And I wonder if that just goes all the way back to our roots. It's like the tribe, the tribe could not thrive. Stupidity got you dead. So if you're being stupid, that equals death. That is bad. You want to get really mad at someone if they're being stupid.
Right. Well, I mean, it probably has some type of real primal
reaction.
Or for any individual to think that they are right.
But like you said with lettuce, is it really life or death? If it's torn or it's sliced.
Right. Or how you fold laundry. I mean, anything someone you're close to is doing, or how you want your child to do a math problem. It's like, okay, she has another way, and I wasn't patient enough for her to maybe teach me this other way, and I was just trying to make her do it my way.
Right.
And it just kind of didn't work out for either of us.
Yeah, for whatever reason, who knows? The new method she's learning in school might be considered the faster method now, and you learned the slower method or something. Because things get refined and changed.
Right.
Or maybe they were teaching a slower method, and you're like, I know the faster method.
Right. I knew the right way.
That is a great point. It's like it's being able to let go and let someone do their thing without you feeling the need to control it.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And maybe that's what it comes down to is control.
Yeah. And actually, something happened recently, but there wasn't anger involved, but it was this matter of how do you, let's say it is a matter of someone's doing something differently that's maybe not as effective as it could be, So, and it had to do with chopping an onion. I had watched a TV program, and one of the chefs showed you how to chop an onion. I said, "Oh, that's cool," and I'll do it that way. And then I recently, meaning 1 or 2 years ago, was cooking with my older daughter, and she was having a hell of a time chopping up an onion. So I think I intervened I can't remember how I intervened, but it was like...
It's all about how you intervene.
Yeah, right. But and I didn't intervene the right way, apparently. Because she got very angry at me intervening, and saying, that's not the only way you can do it. And so I must have, as I say, I probably said something like, here's the way you should do it. And it did end up with me cooking alone.
For sure.
So, but it
backfired.
Backfired. But it is a better way of cutting it.
So what is this technique? How do you cut the onion? What's the right way to cut it?
I think I'm going the wrong way. You cut the onion. You know how there's a little nub at the end that the plant grows from, is like where the roots.
Yeah.
You don't want to cut that off.
You don't want to cut it off?
No, you cut that. It holds everything together.
Oh, shoot. I always cut that off.
That holds the whole onion together.
So it's easier to cut.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And so you cut it in half through that nub.
Through the nub?
Yeah, through the nub.
Okay.
So that when you do that, the whole onion still stays together.
Because you got half a nub on both sides of half the onion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then...
And then what do you do?
And then you slice the onion, how would I describe, parallel to that first cut.
Parallel. Okay.
Right. So now you're making slices.
Do for like a hamburger.
Dicing. For dicing. I'm sorry.
This is for dicing.
It's for dicing.
Okay.
Right. So then you cut parallel to that first slice. So you're making slices. Now they're all being held together because you never disrupted that nub.
Disrupt the nub.
And then after you do that, then you cut perpendicular to those cuts. So now
starting away from the nub and getting closer to the nub. Or starting.
You're pointing your knife at the nub, and cutting through. So
I see what you're saying now. Yeah.
And then you turn your knife 90 degrees to that slice, and now you chop in all the nice little chunks of onion come flying out.
Interesting.
And then you have this little nub behind that held everything together. Is now all by itself.
Well, if you got anything else out of this interview, you know how to chop an onion now. Wow, cool. I gotta try that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting because the asserting that you know how to do something better or right and it comes down to, I always think it's interesting. I see sometimes angry people that like just are kind of angry a lot, that they're really, like you said, that they don't like how people are doing things and they want to control those things around them. And I always kind of wonder, they're so angry because their own personal life they have is out of control. So this is their one attempt of trying to have some control. If they can't control their own life, well, let me try to control someone else's life, and that can make me feel a little bit more rooted, to feel a little bit better in life. But if I'm wondering if that can sometimes happen, or maybe it can happen the other way. You really have a lot of control of your own life, and your life is so together that now you feel like you have this authority to start being able to control other people's life.
I'm sure that both of those play out in life, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think whatever you can imagine actually does occur.
Sure. Yeah. That's probably true for sure. Okay. Did you know going into having kids that it would be the lifetime commitment that it is?
Probably. Though I've heard some parenting, not necessarily from the parents, but some kids who were told by their parents when they hit 18, okay, I'm done with you. You can leave now.
Right.
And that kind of shocked me when I've heard that. I think I'm getting lost right here.
Petoskey.
Did it say Petoskey?
We're looking.
Here.
Yeah, there was a sign that said Petoskey. Here, let's pause here.
No. Yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead. No, we don't have to pause.
Okay. We just gotta check to see. We're getting lost trying to get to his cabin.
Right. Too many twists and turns,
but that's the beauty of it. Get lost in the woods.
Right.
The remoteness of it all.
Okay. We're gonna get there now. Direction.
Baby bug camp?
Yeah, baby bug camp. Where are we? Where's my little... Okay, go. Start. Oh, I think we're going okay.
Oh, wait. We've still got 49... Oh, because this is like a 2-hour drive from where we left, huh?
It's an hour and 20 minutes, so I don't know what happened. But we stopped and got gas.
That's true. Yeah.
And we just got lost.
We got lost. There you go.
I think I am going... I made an incorrect, but it's okay. We're going somewhere.
We're going there.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah, and I'm surprised Rick hasn't called.
Yeah.
Unless he's got, like, maybe he's there and he doesn't have phone service or something, and he's just kind of hanging out,
Or he never woke up.
Right. What about? But yeah.
Actually, we never got lost.
We never
did. No, we didn't. We're doing good.
We're doing good.
Yeah. So let me think if I can. What? Maybe can I turn the question on you?
Sure.
Okay. So, you must be interested in fatherhood.
I am.
So why are you interested in fatherhood?
Because I always. I like family. I like the concept of family and like having a tight-knit group or village of people that you love and you look out for each other and have great memories and experiences with each other. And I don't think you necessarily need to be a father to do that. You can always just, your friends and loved ones can become your family, your village, your tribe, and you can host, big gatherings, take vacations, and make all these memories and really care and love for each other, even if like you're not able to be a father for whatever reason. It's not in the cards. But I do think being a father probably is one of the most enriching experiences of that nature, if you desire to have that experience of like being part of a village, and this kind of weird like mini socialist state,
Right.
Because that's what it is, really.
Right.
It's like you share the means of, you you shared your product, your production with the group to be able to grow and thrive.
Yeah.
Your energy and love.
That's probably a good example. It's too bad that all of life can't be lived like that in a socialist state. Maybe that's the way we're supposed to be.
I mean, a lot of the instances that I've read about, like the Greek city-states, those were very kind of socialist little communities, and very much the Native Americans and how their tribes were kind of they still had like a hierarchy loosely,
right.
but it very much was kind of like a socialist type of thing where all the resources were shared and everything was shared, and even mothers were all cared for all the children. And
it takes a village.
It takes a village, exactly. And I think on a smaller scale it can work really well because everyone is agreeing and consenting that they want to help and contribute and be a part of this group. But even back then, there was always that one outcast that didn't give a shit about anyone, so they kicked him out of the tribe, and he was like the lone hunter out and living in the woods because he was some conservative bastard.
Some self-centered guy.
I don't want to alienate my conservative listeners there, okay? It's totally fine to be conservative. Nothing against you personally.
Right.
But
you can't get angry at someone else for the way they think life should be led.
Right. But like even like that concept of like, my close friend Sean and I, we always talk about that. Me and a bunch of friends want to just go buy a big piece of land somewhere, and all of us just build a compound and live on a compound together, and all just like work a few hours and cook and have a great time and just like be this little compound family. And it's probably never going to happen, but it's fun to think about because we think if life was structured that way, it'd be a lot happier way to live, we feel like. But I mean, I think that's a very different type of life, and I think a family is a small way that you can replicate that, in your own small bubble.
Right.
I have other motivations to be a father, which is that I just feel like I want to be a father that I felt like I didn't get to have, and there's just some part of me that always is like, I want to be the dad and there's just kind of like this weird thing, and it's kind of a weird motivation. We're like, oh, so you didn't have the best dad, so that's why you want to be a dad? Like, it's kind of weird, but it's just, I already wanted to be a dad, and I just know I want to be a really awesome dad because I felt what it felt like to maybe not have the best dad around all the time.
But it was interesting, though, what you said, that part of your interest in being a dad is because you value that family life. So, even though you're saying maybe your dad wasn't the best, there's still certain value and benefit. I mean, value that you saw in that relationship or in your childhood. You still had.
I had a lot of friends. I saw how some of their families operated.
Yeah.
And I saw also some friends that had some rougher experiences.
Yeah.
I kind of saw both, and I saw the value of like a really strong family community and how no one else looks out for you the way family can look out for you.
I totally got lost on this trip, I think. We're doing okay. But
Are we back?
We'll get there, but this is
major detour.
Yeah.
We're looking at all these dilapidated houses here. That one needs a fresh paint job.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a really big house.
Yeah.
Whoa, white horse.
I'm hoping anyway. Yeah, that's good.
Division Road.
Yeah, I just really screwed up, I think. Maybe. Not that bad. We're okay.
Yeah, and I think it's the most redeeming, worthwhile, courageous job to be a father over anything else.
Now
that's another strong reason.
Now, isn't this interesting? So, I was telling you earlier before we spoke on this tape that I kind of look at things from a very like biological, organic, and animalistic way.
Sure.
So that's all your rationalization of why you want to be a father.
Right.
That's the rationalization. In reality, here.
Right. There's a biological drive.
Yeah. Right. There's something driving you. I mean,
sure.
The stag in this here woods out here that we're driving through. is going to go hump that dough.
That's right.
And he's not thinking like what you're thinking.
That's true. Well, I do have to say, I joked around when I was younger with my friends that like the world deserves me to be a father because I have such great genes that I need to pass on.
Right,
I was real, smart ass, pretentious douchebag about it. But I do genuinely feel that like if there's a bunch of baby Nickies running around, the world would be a better place. And not because no, I definitely I'm not that full of myself to think that like my genes are supreme or anything like that. But I do think I have okay genes and feels good to want to pass them on.
Right.
And I also feel like I have the capacity, because I feel like I'm a good teacher, that I will be able to pass on all the things that I've learned, and that my child would be able to take all those, and if they wanted to run with them, become way better than me at those things.
Yeah.
And if they decide to go into something else that I'm not aware of, I'll happily participate in the learning process because I'm interested in all things.
But still, it's cool, this concept. I mean, it's still all that rationalization that you're going through, and really, what it's all being driven by this biological drive to make sure that your genetic material it keeps going.
That drive is there.
Yeah,
for sure.
right.
Yeah,
it's fascinating that as humans we can attach meaning to it.
Yeah,
But really, it's just a animal instinct to go at babies.
Yeah, and that's where like when Ann and I first started talking about it, she had mentioned like adoption, and I have nothing against it and would love that child, but there was like a part of me that was just very much like, but I want my own child.
Right.
I want my own one.
Right. But at the same time, there's definitely a beauty and need for those children who don't have a parent.
Totally.
And then you kind of got to give up your own little selfishness that I'm not going to have my genetic material running off the earth.
Right.
But that oftentimes you don't have control of that. Sometimes hey, that's what you got to do.
That's what you got to do.
Or
Yeah. I mean, I have a student that is adopted, and he's amazing, and the parents are great parents, and like it's a great dynamic they have, and I can tell they love him like it's their own child, and he loves them like it's his own parents. So I'm sure I could have that same bond.
Yeah.
No problem.
For sure. I mean, I think you see that throughout life. I mean, I definitely have met, families where the child was adopted, and there's the love is just as strong and as meaningful as anything. And vice versa. I mean, there's horrible parenting going on out there about to the biological children, and the parent should have nothing to do with that kid. Like, separate them. That's horrible. So that the sperm and the egg is one thing, but the love is something totally different.
Yeah. So what would you say? Number one thing is love. You gotta love your child.
You do, and whatever that is, it's such a hard concept, and I think it means you want the best for them. You're going to protect them. You're going to provide for them. You want to support them in their life, and hopefully they have a meaningful and I don't want to say happy. I hate that word happy.
Yeah.
But a life that fulfilled. Yeah. That's it.
Would you say, because you said you want to support them, and you also want the best for them, and you must find sometimes that these things conflict with each other. You want these two things, but if you do both of them at the same time, it might actually be in conflict. Like if you want what's best for them, and that might mean you're supposed to support them too, but then it goes, actually the best thing for them right now would be to cut them off. You make that hard decision that they need to be cut off so they can grow up or whatever.
Yeah. Well, support. Definitely. You think of the word support, and you might think, financially back them.
Right.
And that's not always necessary. The simplest thing is let's say, the toddler learning how to walk. How are you going to support them? Well, they're starting to get out there teetering back and forth, and then you just maybe give them a little push in the butt to keep them up, and they didn't fall that time, and they take a couple steps on their own. So you kind of supported them. Or your kid goes to college, and you say, well, I'm going to pay for college if I can, and so you support them. Or your daughter says, hey, I'm going to move out to LA, and you really don't want that to happen,
Sure.
but you support them in their decision. So,
Sure.
support comes in a lot of different forms, and sometimes it's, supporting them in their decision. And that sometimes is the hardest one, to say, well, because I really don't think you should do that, but if that's really what you want to do, then sure, go ahead. And that wouldn't necessarily involve any money, but it's just giving them okay, that sometimes, I love you, and if that's what you want to do, I'll support you in that decision.
But you must feel sometimes like a strong emotion, just like with the right and wrong thing, that like if you feel like they're doing something you disagree with, you really feel this urge to really tell them it's a bad idea or whatever, and discourage them, but then it's like that balance,
Yeah. Well, that's it. But I mean, as a person, at certain times you can do that. I mean, if you got a 14-year-old that wants to move to LA or do something crazy, you're going to say, no, that's crazy. You're not doing that. But when you start talking about 18, 19, 20-year-old, those persons kind of becoming an adult, they are kind of acquiring their own decision-making skills, and they feel like they want to, do something. I don't think it's. Sometimes you just can't get in people's way, and see that they have to live their own life, and sometimes you can reflect upon your own life when your child's doing something that you think they shouldn't do, and just think back at how many times I did things my parents thought I shouldn't do, and that's just a natural part of growing up, that there's always going to be conflict, and that the parent is always going to think that they know better for the child than the child knows for themselves, and maybe that could be true, and maybe in retrospect, that the child might think, oh, I should have listened to my parents.
Sure.
But I don't think that I don't think that's a good way of doing it. I mean, if something's really dangerous, illegal, immoral, you might want to intervene in some way. But if it's not any of those, then sometimes a person does have to, learn by their own mistakes or their own successes, because you don't know where it's going to end up. I remember this one example. A friend of mine was talking about a client that he was working with. Actually, Neil, is my nephew.
Yeah.
He's a financial planner, and he was talking to one of his clients about the client's son, and the client was just saying, "Gosh, my son left home. He went out to California, and he left with nothing." And I was scared to death of the kid. He just his car and his belongings, just a few bucks, and I was just so depressed that he went to California, and as years passed by, this kid learned the winemaking industry. I don't know how he got started, whether he was just
bartender maybe.
Yeah, back then, but eventually became a vintner and was producing some of the best wines in California.
Wow.
So here's this dad who didn't want his kid to do this, but stayed out of his way, and probably supported him in some ways, and it turned out for the best.
That's wild.
So you can't really, really got to let people sometimes follow their dreams.
Yeah.
Even with my daughter who decided to go to LA, that was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I did not want that to happen.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, and she was determined, and I knew that by her determination that I couldn't get in her way. I mean, this was her decision as an adult, that this is what she wanted to do, and she struggled through it, but I think things came out pretty positive for her in the end.
Yeah.
She was following her dream, and
now I'm curious. You really didn't want her to do that, but ultimately you're like, okay, I guess I'll support you doing this thing, even though I don't like it.
Right.
And I can't imagine how hard that'd be, because especially my motivations being wanting to have this tight village family,
right,
and have all these memories and lives to experience together. And if one of my children or my child was peace. I'm going to go have life experiences somewhere else, not with you. That would kill me, because that's one of my strong motivations for having this family, is to have these great weekends together, you know.
Yeah.
And that would kill me.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
we did have great weekends together, and now we're having another one.
Of course. No, we are.
Right.
But
So
what I was going to ask was, even though you didn't like that, but you support her anyways, did you, like that client said, you know, his son just kind of went out there with almost nothing and a few bucks, and he was really worried. Did you really worry as well, and did you, you know, financially help her during some of that time, or was it just kind of like, all right, let's see how she does, you know, kind of a thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's some, I would say some financial help, but not, I don't, you know, I can't remember. I think at times there was like little injections of money had to happen,
Sure.
you know, for the most
jobs or something.
Yeah,
like that.
right. But for the most part, she did it on her own. I mean, you know, I think she had some money saved up, and maybe even some money we said, well, here, this is get started and good luck, you know. But it wasn't like a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, it was a few $1,000s.
Right.
But she made it on her own, and it is. But it was really the right thing to do for her, because, I mean, for some reason, that's what she saw her life being. It wasn't being in Ann Arbor, Michigan anymore. It was being in Los Angeles, California, for some reason.
Right.
And she was really determined to do it. And I think, in a way, it wasn't. You almost could tell that, well, if I gotten her away with this would be like a crushing blow to her.
Right.
Because she had something to prove.
Right.
She had something to show herself, and that was the important part of the whole thing. Not necessarily with what job she ended up, but to say that I can do this.
I can be on my own.
And I did it.
Yeah.
You know. So if she never had that experience, her life might be totally different.
Well, she'll always be wondering what would have it been like if a dad would have let me do that, you know, or whatever.
And what resentment she might have towards me,
Sure.
or anything like that.
Right.
But then again, I don't know if in saying that, I don't know if that would have ever happened, because I think she was so determined to leave that even if I bodily held her down, she would break free and leave. You know.
Yeah.
You can't imprison anybody. You know.
Right.
You know, you could, but
That'd be bad.
Wouldn't be a good thing. Right.
I was going to ask, because, you know, we had a conversation previously that you think that something that you care about as your kids grow up, that it's not for everyone, but you think it's pretty important that they find a partner, that they find someone that they can have their life together with, and that's like a important milestone, similar to like maybe like college would be a milestone for someone in their life. And obviously Anna came to LA. She found me, and it's funny because I hear Anna now tell me that she sometimes, not like she would take it back because she did it and that's done, it's in the past, but that sometimes she just realized that she didn't maybe appreciate Michigan as much as she did until after she moved to LA and was in LA for a long time, and then realized, like, she, you know, now she tells me she misses it, and I'm like, you know, misses the quietness of a smaller town, you know, and nature and all the great things about Michigan, which is why you stay here and live here, you know.
Right. Well, I think that's true for everyone. You know, I always say you make a decision based on your current experiences and what you
know and don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and when you make a decision and you go forward, and then you make another decision and go forward, and then you keep doing that, and then, you know, 6 or 7 decisions down the road, you look back and say, boy, I really missed that place back there. and you know, I think I don't know if I think it was about Ann. And someday I should do this. So if any listener out there copies this idea, I'm coming after you. But it kind of does this little story around a frog that was trying to cross a river, and the flow of the river was pretty strong, stronger than the frog could swim, and the frog wanted to get to the other side, and there's all these little rocks and lily pads or plants scattered across the river that, you know, could possibly be a bridge. And so this little frog is sitting on one of the banks and kind of checking out the scene and saying, well, how am I going to get over there? And he sees a stone. And he says, oh, I can jump to that stone. So, okay, decision number one, let's go to that stone. And he jumps, and he makes it. He said, oh, great, now I'm here. But then he's looking back and says, oh, crap. Now, I'm here, but how can I get... That stone looks pretty far away. Can I get there? I don't know. How about, oh, there's a plant over there. Let's try that plant. And then he jumps. And he lands on the plant. And he holds on for dear life because the water's really rushing by. And he's like hanging onto this plant because he knows he can't beat the stream. And he gets like grabs and he sees that next stone. He says, oh, I think I can make it. And jumps on the next stone. And eventually he makes it across. But it wasn't necessarily the easiest path he took, but it was a path that got him to where he wanted to be.
Right.
Now, along the way, maybe another frog, maybe his buddy behind him, like slipped off the rock and got carried downstream, and is gone.
Wow.
So I think that life is like that. You make decisions based on the circumstances you're at.
Right.
And you try to make the best decision based on that.
Right.
And sometimes the best decision turns out to be not the best decision, but that's only after the fact that it turns out that way.
Sure.
And so you can't. I think you can't, second guess yourself all the time. Sometimes you gotta do something, and I think there's like I've heard that it's like an 80% rule. If nothing's going to be perfect, but if you can figure it's like 80% right, then do it.
Do it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, there's another one. There's the 80-20 rule, which is 80% of your, let's say, well, you can almost apply it to anything, but let's say 80% of your income only takes, it comes from only 20% of your efforts. And that last 20% of income takes a whole 80% of your effort. So this is coming from a book that's basically espousing, you do your best work only for a few hours, and the rest of the day you're already kind of drained, and it's just kind of crappy work. And if you just really maximize that short amount of time of work time, you get 80% of your income. Well, that's all you need. Fuck the other 20%.
Too bad employers don't look at it that way.
and he carries it over to basically like, if you have a big firm and you got, he says 20% of your clients make 80% of the income for the business. The other 80% of clients are all small fry. Why are you wasting all this time and emails and all that for just 20% of the income of the business? Just focus on those 20% clients that get 80% of the money in the business, and that's it. And go home. But that can apply to anything like washing dishes or working out. Like even working out, like 20% of the workout is like does the best for you, but the rest of the time you're just kind of doing extra stuff, but it's not really needed for your health, and wellness.
You're walking around the gym looking
right. Or just like you do your squats, and maybe you do like some push-ups, like do some real compound work your whole body out, and then you're over there doing bicep curls for 20 minutes. Like, what are you doing? It's not helping you really at all.
Right.
You want the stuff that gives you the big bang for your buck.
Right.
And that's that 80-20 rule. I was going to remark on that Anna, she doesn't, like you said, you just make a decision, you hop to a stone, you make another decision, and she said she doesn't regret going to LA because if she hadn't done that, she would never have realized the appreciation that she has for being here.
Right.
By going away, it now reinforced, I missed that and enjoyed that life I had there, and I would like my child to have that life like that too, because I really enjoyed this environment to grow up in, and I think it's a great environment to raise a family in. So it's
the Midwest, we raise families here in the Midwest. Kind of Midwest.
What's wild is I've had a strong motivation for a long time to be a parent, and it has to do with like the path that I chose. That like I recognized from a young age, I could maybe get into being a performer and stuff and really struggle and barely get by and do a lot of performing and have a really great time performing and barely making enough money to survive. But I knew that I really wanted to have a family and like be comfortable and not stressed about money and have a nice house to raise the kids in and stuff like that. And I made that decision pretty early on that I went, okay, this performing thing very well might not work out, so let me have a backup plan and let's go get a degree in something that will make some decent money and get the best bang for my buck. So I'm like, all right, if I only have to get a bachelor's degree, what's the best bachelor's degree that gets you the most bang for your buck? Oh, engineering, hands down.
Right.
There's no other career that only needs a bachelor's degree and that can make you a good amount of money. And it can also tie into a lot of future things. If you ever want to build your own home, well, if you're an engineer, you can do it, you know? So I decided that, not because I had a particular passion for it or anything, but it's a means to an end to be able to provide for having a family. But I also sometimes wonder how maybe frustrating that could be for my mother, who goes, maybe she's really excited to see me grow and flourish and become successful in my own personal endeavors, and maybe she's a little frustrated I'm so focused on like trying to just become a family man, when maybe she goes like, oh, all this talent's going to waste, or all this, you know what, you're allocating all your resources to what, to just rush to become a dad and have a family. Why don't you focus on like having some personal success first and then become a dad? And I can see that perspective, and I can see that with myself sometimes, thinking like, am I doing the right thing by being so focused on this? But well, like you said, you just kind of like take a jump and you think that this is a good choice. And I'm not one of those people that's gonna regret like, oh man, I had kids too young and I should have kept trudging ahead as a single man and figure out personal successes and having crazy wild experiences performing in the circus or whatever, like stuff like that, because I know I feel like you can do those. You're just doing that when you have a family. You're just like, I'm very enamored by like the family circus, where like the dad and the whole crew, like, yeah, the whole family starts a business and we're the family circus and we all perform for you, and like that's so cool. You make your family become like part of your vision, I guess.
I guess you can't, it's a value thing. So what do you value? If you value family, then making that a central focus is important to you. And like you said, I would kind of agree that not agree, but I think that's you said that being an engineer and having a stable income is a way to, and then swimming, and that's not bad. I mean, it does help you live your life,
right.
And so all these pieces can fit together to achieve what you want.
Right.
But that doesn't mean though that you can't achieve things like being a real successful engineer. I mean, or expand your.
Still do the best that you can in everything that you do.
Yeah. So that doesn't. Yeah, one doesn't. And being.
They're not exclusive of each other.
And sometimes being a parent, and well, maybe I would say this. Most corporations in the world have people with families running them, right? Right. It's not like, oh, I'll run the corporation first, then have a family. Well, too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
No, because I think a lot of people try to scare you, especially when you're young. I'm 27, and like sometimes, oh, you're getting married already? Oh, you're gonna have a kid already? And they start like judging you, like, oh, well, your life's over. There goes your free time.
Right.
And you're kind of like, what are you talking about? I can still do all the things I want to do and have a family. Like I get that it's work. You don't have as much fuck off time. Sure. You've got more responsibilities. But I also always think the more responsibilities you get, the more powerful you become, and the more you rise to the occasion. And the less responsibilities you have, the more of a shithead you are, and the more you sit on the couch, smoke weed, and do nothing.
Yeah, it definitely makes you more efficient. You got to use your time, better.
Right.
So you can't just I got nothing to do today. I'll just screw around and do nothing, and I can do it tomorrow.
Right.
No, you got to do it today.
Yep. And it makes you a better person for it, and it actually makes you maybe set yourself on the right course to become that successful CEO.
Right.
More so than if you didn't have a family.
Yeah. And again, there's many ways to cross that river. Right. And there's many rocks to hop onto.
Right.
And you just got to hop. And you keep going. Or else, and it takes work and a struggle, and sometimes some of those people don't make it to the rock and they go downstream.
Sure, sure.
So it's a matter of like a little bit of discipline, perseverance, hard work, having a dream and following it, and that's the most important part of the thing, not even, having a goal, I think that's a really, really important part of life for anybody. Almost like you want to have goals,
right?
And you don't necessarily have to make that goal, but you gotta have a goal,
right?
And because if you don't have a goal, there's nothing. What are you doing?
Yep.
You want to have a direction and something, and it doesn't have to be a concrete goal. I mean, even if your goal is like, I don't know, being one with nature. I don't know, if that's your goal and you work to achieve that, it gives you kind of some meaning,
Right.
And it's fun to have goals. And having a family is a goal. Being a good engineer is a goal, but they're not mutually exclusive.
Right.
Or being an aerialist. Now sometimes time becomes a constraint.
Right.
And I hope I didn't miss my turn, but I don't think I did. So you can only devote a certain amount of time. There's only 24 hours in a day, so you gotta
choose wisely.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you how the transition has been from being a father of children to now being a father of adults.
Sometimes I feel it doesn't change much. No. You still worry about your children. I mean,
Okay.
I do. I don't know if everybody does, but there's still always this concern that they're going to be okay, that they're healthy, that they're happy, that they're going in a good direction. I mean, that's always kind of there, But yeah, the day-to-day custodial functions are gone.
You find that you have more free time than maybe you did when they were younger?
But not really. I mean, I think let's look at the other end.
Okay.
Like when you first have a family, like you start thinking, wait, what did I do with all the time I had? It's like, because right now it's all being eaten up by these little kids. It's like, but you are very happy and content with the time that you're spending with your kids.
Right.
So that free time that you had, I don't know what we did with that free time, but you definitely know that as a parent, that time you're spending with your kids is great.
Right. Right.
I think for the most part, I'm sure there's days that So, there's the gas station with the pizza.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And but now, I think it's that we're empty nesters, and there's a nice there's something very pleasant about that.
Empty nester.
Yeah.
Meaning like you're still living in the nest, but the birds have
gone. The fledglings have gone.
Are gone.
You just
and there's a little bit of sadness there, right?
Yeah, there always is a little bit of sadness, but you just have the more time for yourself. But for me right now, I with work, my work fills up all my time. So
sure.
I mean, actually,
you work more hours now than you did when they were kids. Probably.
I think so. It feels like it.
Yeah.
And maybe because they're not around, I can do that.
Yeah.
I think the workload I have is much more than I had before when they were kids. Maybe I structured it. Oh, definitely the jobs I had were structured more so I could be with family a little bit. But then when they left, I kind of took on more, let's say, responsibility.
Yeah.
So.
And you were happy to because it kind of filled that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And now the next step is retirement, and then I'll have a bunch of free time. But I can tell right now that days go by so quickly that it's just there's days that I'm probably going to shoot by and say, crap, I didn't get anything accomplished today.
Yeah. So you're retiring, and you feel confident with that? Are you nervous about it? Are you excited?
Yeah, you go back and forth. It's been a process. There was never it was a slow developing idea that probably took me months, if not years, to kind of really wrap my head around it and say, okay, I'm going to do it. and still I still feel like a little unease, but I guess there's a feelings of unease and happiness with it, and I'm feeling more and more of the happiness. Like, am I glad that this is going to be done soon? But there's a lot of good things that come from it. Number one, there's a sense of accomplishment, contribution,
right?
Satisfaction. Plus, they pay me for that,
right?
And
well, that feels good.
Yeah, and I think of all those, the pay's a part of it, but it's the other stuff that is more like how, what am I going to feel those things? Like, financially, I'm probably going to do okay. Then I'm nervous because of the current, COVID disaster and how it affected the markets and people's savings. I mean, how's that going to impact me over the next few years? What's going to happen with the stock market, blah, blah, blah. But, so you kind of a little bit apprehensive, but that's not the part that worries me the worst. The worst part is, like, am I going to have a satisfying life? Am I going to be doing things that make me feel good? Right? I like to golf, but I cannot see myself golfing every day. It's like that. When I even think of that, I go, oh, that sounds boring.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, like you said, you want to feel fulfilled and have a happy life. And work. Part of your identity is your work.
Right.
And
right.
At work, like you said, makes you feel accomplished, that you're contributing to society.
Right.
And so you can partially feel like you're quitting on society when you retire. I'm done contributing to you. I'm doing my own thing now.
To some degree, I do feel that a little bit, but in a good sense, in a way. Like, the one thing I do want to. Part of me wants to feel this thing like I've done my duty. Now leave me alone. And right now I'm going to be selfish and not have to be constrained to a time schedule.
Yeah.
I don't have to punch in, punch out. I don't have to answer a page. I don't have to return a memo.
Right.
Like, so.
I think the beautiful thing that can come from retirement is that you can contribute to society on your time.
Right.
I could see you, after enjoying the thrill of it for a little bit, then going, hey, what's going on over here in this community that I bought this cabin in? What's going on over here? What's this over here?
Right.
Oh, I want to fix this. I want to help fix this. Who do I need to talk to? I can just do it myself? Cool. I'm doing it. I'm fixing it. I'm contributing again. Sure. But you do it on your time. You wake up when you want. You have breakfast when you want. You go fix it. And you say, I did that. I made that better.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's, and probably definitely thinking of doing that. Or, like, for me right now, like, you've been learning to play the guitar. I probably will spend a little bit more time trying to learn my banjo so we can do a duet.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
I'm so down.
But I have used time as an excuse not to practice the banjo. I don't have enough time. Of course, you can always make time to do something.
Yeah.
But I have used that as an excuse. I don't have the time.
Totally.
But as I go into retirement, I hope to pick up the banjo again and play with it.
And honestly, it's just about, I found with everything, because I'll check myself when someone asks me, and I'll say I don't have enough time. And now I go, that's not my priority right now. Like, that's not.
Yeah, right.
If it was my priority,
right.
All it takes is making it a habit. And with me, with guitar, I do have to say, practicing guitar for me will get thrown out of whack if I'm out of my routine. So, like, I'm not in LA right now, because normally in LA I wake up, I'm having my coffee, and I'm practicing guitar.
Yeah.
But now I'm on vacation I'm over here in Michigan, and so I'm like, I kind of forget, and I'm like, oh gosh, before bed, let me go downstairs real quick and practice, just because I know the importance of a daily habit, daily routine, and that's how you incrementally get better and better over time, and that applies to everything, obviously. Whatever you do every day, the better you get at it, I talked to my guitar teacher, and I said, hey, what's more important? Should I sit down and do an hour of practice once a week, or 10 minutes every day? And he said, hands down, 10 minutes a day. The daily habit of even just 5 minutes of practicing it, touching it, the strings, the finger control, it's so much more important than, like, banging your head against it for an hour and feeling frustrated.
Right.
Because that's not productive at that point. He's like, he told me about how his father used to trap him in his room with his guitar for 3 hours when he was like 5 years old.
Really?
Like, practice, and you're not coming out of this room until I hear that guitar for 3 hours straight.
Right.
And before you let him eat dinner or something, like, he talks about how it was horrible. Now, granted, he's like, I am a really good guitarist, but like, he's like, I don't feel like that was the right approach necessarily to trap me in there,
That's amazing that his dad really did that to him.
Yeah.
Why did his dad have that motivation?
Well, his dad was a really good guitarist and played in I forgot what they're called, but like a bunch of the Mexican band that comes through the restaurant table. Right. He played in like one of those bands. Mariachi type of situations, and
so that was a cultural thing that
was part of the family. Yeah,
he wanted to be good at it.
But basically his father was relentless, and they're like, if you want to, because his son did say, oh, when can I play with you and your friends, Dad? And he was like, when you're good enough. You sound like crap. Here, go back in your room. And then, but by the time he was 9 or 10, he was good enough to play with his dad's band, and like play competently. But he does say, like, I already wanted to play with my dad's band. He didn't need to lock me in my room to do it. I would have happily sat in the living room and while he was cooking dinner and practice, Right. But he made it a little bit more intense than it needed to be.
Right.
And he said, and even my teacher says, I was naturally talented because I was around.
Does he still love his dad?
I'm sure he does. I think his dad might be dead.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he's not listening to this. But yeah. But so he said 10 minutes. He said every day is way better. He says ideally you get at least one longer session once a week, like a 30-minute session to an hour. But definitely every day, just 10 minutes. Or 15 minutes, whatever you can spare.
Or lock yourself in the room and 3 hours every day.
So what I try to do is I try to do 2 10-minute sessions, once in the morning, once in the evening.
What's hard? What do you find hard not to do? I mean,
what do I find hard not to do?
No. What excuses do you do? Do you have any excuses so that you don't practice? Is there a time you say, well, I'm not going to practice because?
Okay, well, and I would say that there was definitely the busier you get, you feel like you don't have the time to practice. And there's been some weeks where maybe I didn't feel as motivated to practice, and I was also really busy because I'm doing a full-time job, and then I have to go home, or not home, but then go after work to go teach service classes.
Right.
And I worked 10-hour days, and it became really difficult for me to find the time to practice my 10 minutes. Especially, I'd be really tired from teaching the night before, and I'd wake up late, I gotta go straight to work. I can't pick up the guitar and practice before going to work. I gotta get to work. So occasionally what I was doing was I'd put my guitar in the car, and then at work, at a break, I'd go out to the parking garage and I'd practice 10 minutes on my car. But there are some things that, maybe I make excuses for. I'm trying to think. I mean, partly what's hard is that there's nobody. That's been my hardest struggle transitioning from being a kid to an adult, is that there's nobody telling me what I should do. I know that sounds like, why would you be complaining? Nobody's telling you what you should do. But I am complaining a little bit because it's a little bit frustrating that nobody's telling me what I should do, or not even at least suggesting. You
want me to tell Anna?
Well, even Anna, she doesn't sometimes. Like, I would not say Anna is bossy at all. Zero, zilch. Even Anna sometimes. It's not like I wish she'd tell me what to do because I don't think about Anna should be telling me what to do. But I would definitely say Anna doesn't tell me what to do.
You need direction.
Yeah. And that's the tough thing, is that I think that comes from a mentor, but a lot of times it can just come from your friends and peer pressure. I think the only peer pressure I've gotten from my friends are, oh, you should buy a gun. So we get in these old gun debates, and do whatever you want with listeners about what you feel about guns. I just don't feel like I need to have a gun, and that's one of probably the only things that my friends really pressure me about what I should do.
Your friends want you to have a gun.
They really think I should have a gun. They think I live in a rough neighborhood.
Oh, I see.
They think it's warranted. They think, especially if I have a child, that I should have a gun. And we get into all these debates where whatever. But that's probably the only thing that but that's not one of those things you say, oh, I don't have time for. That's not one of those ones.
Right.
But I just, there's nothing my friends say that like, Nick, you should do this, and I have to say the excuse, oh, I don't have time for that. Like, I'm trying to think when the last time what's funny is I give advice to my friends all the time about things they should do, and they give me the, oh, I don't have time excuse.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is. I get a little frustrated that I think people think I'm just doing the right thing, so they don't tell me that, but...
Whoa, is this big truck going?
Feedback is nice sometimes.
What are they doing? Oh, it's a garbage truck. Oh, we saw
that
this.
That was the junk on the side of the road.
Yeah, right. I want to ask these guys that. Let me ask these.
Are you asking if they're picking it up?
Yeah, let me.
Sure. Hi, we have a question. What do you want to ask?
Myself.
Well, let's wrap it up. We're almost here.
Oh, that's right.
This was a great interview. Love talking about this stuff. Love talking about fatherhood and just being a better man in general. Marriage, fatherhood, life, great stuff to talk about. I think a lot of kids out there, or a lot of young men out there growing up, wherever they are in their lives, maybe they don't have the best household, but they're sitting in their room and they're just looking for some good mentorship,
Yeah.
Cool.
It's, I think it is one of the, it's just part of life, and not everybody might be cut out for it, but probably most of us are to some degree. That's like that. It's in our DNA. It's in our DNA. That's what our DNA wants us to do. Go out there and father some children. But I think it takes a great responsibility.
Fathering the children, not the being a father.
It's just it's our responsibility, and to do it right. Not everybody does, and it's a hard job to do right. It is, and you make mistakes, but hopefully they're small mistakes, and you'll learn from them and become better at it all the time.
Right. Bruce, thank you very much.
Sure. When do I get paid?
I'll let you know. Yeah. We'll talk about the details.